Let's come to the fiscal deficit. It shot up after Lehman Brothers, probably rightly so. Your critics say it stayed up for far too long. And given that you had a prime minister who was a finance minister who should have known that this was a mistake, why did he once again not ensure that it came down faster? Why did he let it stay up for so long?
Well, look, let's go back. I mean, I think the fiscal deficit shot up in 2008, 2009. That was a year when we had a humongous global crisis. And, you know, the G20, of which we are a member, and I happened to be a Sherpa, so I used to assist the Prime Minister. I mean, virtually everyone was saying, look, the world is falling off a cliff. We must take corrective action. And corrective action means you must support demand, expand the fiscal deficit. In those days, the Germans were totally opposed to this because they are the fiscal conservatives. The Americans, and to some extent the British, were more kind of relaxed, at least when Brown was Prime Minister. So I think we were looking at what's happening around the world, and for us, it was a clear case that, look, we don't want to disrupt the growth that has occurred. Let's have a big fiscal deficit.
But why did it continue for so long? Why did it continue for so long?
No, that's the issue. You see, some critics say that having done it in 2008, 2009, we should have brought it down in 2009, 2008. This I don't agree with, for the following reason, that, you know, at the time when the 2009, 2010 budget was being discussed, inflation in India, surprisingly, was very low, the wholesale price index. And secondly, the world economy was still highly uncertain. It's not really until April of that year that there was some sense that the global big powers are kind of get their act together in order to make sure that the world doesn't fall off a cliff. So making, so to speak, assurance doubly sure, it made sense to have a stimulus for one more year. I think it's after that, that is, we should have tapered it down after 2010, 2011.
Why didn't you?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's a legitimate question. The finance minister actually said, he prescribed a kind of a method, a pace of reducing the fiscal deficit. And actually he achieved that in 2010, 2011, but mainly because of the telecom revenues. So it was sort of a slightly bogus reduction of
Then
deficit.
let me ask you, with hindsight, and we're all wiser with hindsight, was Pranab Mukherjee, both because of his handling of the fiscal deficit and the earlier mentioned obsession with Vodafone, was he a bad finance minister?
No, you know.
Could we have had a better one?
You can always have better finance ministers, but I don't think in that period, I don't think anybody would look at that period and say that the finance ministry's actions were leading the show in terms of producing innovation. In fact, it was when Chidambaram came back as finance minister sometime in 2013, that, you know, 2012, I think, that the beginning of getting back to fiscal discipline started.
Absolutely. That's why I asked the question. It only began with Chidambaram and the removal of Pranab Mukherjee.
Well, I mean, you know, that's life. I think, look, it's very difficult, at least I don't want to make a judgment about whether he could consciously have done something different or not.
Okay.
It's true that one of the biggest problems by then was that, you know, these constraints on project implementation, which was, in my view, one of the reasons why the economy ran out of steam. I mean, the first and the second stimulus did bring the growth rate up. And in 2009, 2010, we did extremely well on the growth front. As a matter of fact, at that time, the IMF was projecting that India's growth would be 4.5%. That's what we were trying to battle in 2009, 2010, put in another fiscal stimulus. And of course, we did extremely well. The growth rate, I forget the number, but it's in the book.
But you didn't taper off when you should have.
We should have tailed it off, and that was a mistake.